everyone. I'm going to introduce our co-presenters today. And I will say that Dr. Barry Jacobs is a two or even three-time presenter for us. So, Barry Jacobs, Psy.D, is a clinical psychologist, family therapist, and a principal for Health Management Associates, a national healthcare consulting firm. A former magazine journalist, he is the author of The Emotional Survival Guide for Caregivers, Looking After Yourself and Your Family While Helping an Aging Parent, and co-author with his wife and co-presenter today, Julia L. Mayer, Psy.D, of AARP Meditations for Caregivers, Practical, Emotional, and Spiritual Support for You and Your Family. AARP Love and Meeting After 50, The 10 Challenges to Great Relationships and How to Overcome Them, and the AARP Caregiver Answer Book, which was just published in July. He's also written a self-help column for caregivers for aarp.org since 2013. An honorary board member of the Well Spouse Association and a former director of behavioral sciences for the Crozier Health Family Medicine Residency, he maintains a psychotherapy practice in Media, Pennsylvania, specializing in supporting individuals with chronic and serious illness and their caregivers. For 7 years, he was the primary caregiver for his stepfather with Alzheimer's disease and his mother with vascular dementia. Julia Mayer, Psy.D, is a clinical psychologist in private practice in media who has specialized for 3 decades in helping women in caregiver roles, as well as those with troubled marriages and histories of sexual trauma. She is the author of the novel A Fleeting State of Mind and co-author of AARP Meditations for Caregivers and AARP Love and Meeting After 50. She's the former president of the board of PSCP, the Psychology Network. Since 2016, she has co-hosted the podcast Shrinks on Third on psychology and social justice. She was a caregiver for her father and mother-in-law with vascular dementia and stepfather-in-law with Alzheimer's disease. And without further ado, I want to welcome Doctors Jacobs and Mayer and say thank you so much for joining us. I am going to pin you, and I think everyone is in for a very special treat.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you all for being here. As you heard, I'm Barry, right? I'm not Dr. Jacobs. I'm Barry, and Julie, do you want to say a word or two?
I'm Julie.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay, that's two, I think. So, anyway, it's really good for us to be here with you, and we're going to talk today about embracing tender memories in caregiving. We'll explain to you what that is in just a moment. But I also just want to pick up on something that Allison said that, when we present, we really like it to be as much of a conversation as possible. And so we're going to ask you some questions and with your patience and hopefully with your typing abilities, you'll put some responses in the chat. That way people are you're all not just learning from us, but you're learning from each other, and it's really more of a conversation, and it's just more interesting all around. So hopefully you're up for that today. So let me tell you a little bit about what we have in mind. So you see what's on the left side of the slide here. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today has to do with mindful awareness. So what does that mean? I mean, probably many of you use mindfulness exercises like meditation or yoga or other types of practices for stress management, for dealing with the stress of caregiving, the stress of everyday life. We're going to be talking about using mindful awareness, not just for stress management, but for improving the relationship that you have with the person who you're caring for, by helping you be more present with them. And we recognize that that's hard because, for a lot of reasons, but not least of which is if you're caring for someone who has dementia, then watching them decline can be very painful for you. And so being acutely aware of how they're doing, or or being with them rather than simply doing for them, can be very difficult. And yet, what we have found, and as you heard in Allison's introduction, both Julie and I cared for our parents with dementia for years, is that the more present we can be now, the better the memories we will have of them later. and also that we will just have a better quality relationship during the caregiving with the person we're caring for. So you're going to hear us talk a lot about reflecting on your state of mind, being more aware of what where you are in your mind as you're in the process of providing care. And providing care could be doing something hands-on. It could just be reminding somebody for the umpteenth time about something that they forgot. Um, all the things that you do for the person you're caring for. Um, so I hope this is what you have in mind for today. You see there's a link on the bottom of this page, and that's a link to an AARP website article that I wrote in 2022 on this topic, if you'd like to read more about it afterwards. But again, what we're going to be talking about today is how do we be with and not simply do for the person who we're a caregiver for. So, just a couple more words about ourselves before we ask you a little bit about yourselves. As you heard Allison mention, we've written a few books on caregiving. Our most recent book is this book that came out in July, the AARP Caregiver Answer Book. The short advertisement is this is a question and answer book with about 150 questions and answers about lots of different aspects of caregiving. It has sections on dementia and sections on caring for a spouse, caring for a parent, dealing with siblings, dealing with doctors. Um, Hopefully this is of interest. And then just a little bit more, you heard Allison mention that I care for my mom who had vascular dementia. This is a picture of her and I in 2017. This is about a month before my mom died in April of 2017. Um, we both look like we're smiling and happy, but honestly, it wasn't really a happy time because my mom was declining pretty severely. And we didn't have the easiest time during the 7 years that I helped care for her. And I wish I had done more of what we're going to talk about today with my mom at that time, because here, almost 9 years later, since she died, I think about her every day, and there are lots of things that I remember doing with her that were really important to me now. The times we looked at photo albums together, the times that we just kind of sat and were quiet with one another, but also where we felt close to with one another. But there were also times when I was just so focused on getting her to medical appointments or making sure that she ate or making sure that she took her pills correctly that I didn't pay good enough attention to how she was experiencing what she was going through or how I was being with her. So that's a little bit about my background.
This is a picture of me, two of my brothers, and my dad. My sister took the picture, so she's not in it. Um, it's like 16 years ago now. My mother had been my dad's caregiver, and my dad had vascular dementia, diabetes, kidney disease, and my mom had heart surgery, which looked like it went well, and then 3 days later, she developed hemorrhagic pancreatitis, which killed her. It's a very rare side effect from the bypass machine. So we were shocked, grieving my mom, and we had to sort of jump into place to take care of my dad. And he lived alone after my mom passed away, and so nobody lived right near him. My siblings and I had to coordinate care, and my older brother on the end did most of the day-to-day care, and I would give him a little respite. Every other weekend, I would drive 3 hours to go stay with my dad so he could have at least have that weekend off. And it was a time when, because I was driving 3 hours each way on the New Jersey Turnpike, I did have a lot of time to think. And I was aware that this was very limited time with my dad. It was it was depressing. I grieved. On the way home, I would cry, but on the way there, I would think about how he and I could have a nice time together, how we could connect for that weekend. And honestly, you know, part of what makes this particular presentation we're doing really meaningful is that that was so meaningful to me. When I look back, I have all these memories of laughing with my dad, enjoying sushi with him, sitting with him, and things that I didn't really do so much when my mom was caring for him. So that's me. So when we think about caregiving, of course, and this was certainly true for both of us, and after I took care of my dad, Barry and I together took care of his mother and stepfather. You have a lot of tasks to do. And for people with dementia, there's more because as time goes by, there's less and less they can do. And you are rushing. You need to be organized. You need to be efficient. You have to get to them dressed, fed, medicated, and to the doctor on time. There are tremendous stresses around caring, as you all know. And so, given all that, and what we both just described in our caregiving experiences, how would you describe what your frame of mind is like while you're caregiving? Just think about it for a minute. Are you focusing on the next task, getting things done, getting people where they need to be? Are you able to be present and connected? Or are you on automatic pilot and you're just doing okay, this is breakfast time, medication time, bathing time? Like, is it a routine where you're not really there, you're just going through the paces? What is it like for you? And if anyone would like to respond, um, that would be great.
Yeah, just feel free to put something in the chat. You could just put, that you are mostly present, or maybe you're on automatic pilot. And sometimes when people are on automatic pilot, it's just a way of kind of getting done. It's just you just want to get things done. You want to get breakfast done. You want to get the shower done. You want to get the ride to the doctor's office done. You want to check off things on your list every day, and you develop routines, and those routines become habits. There's a way, really, of maybe becoming more efficient with what you do, but it's a different frame of mind than being present.
So we have a couple people responding, mostly automatic pilot. Of course, that's true. And there were times where it was certainly true for both of us. And why is that? I mean, you're distracted, you're stressed, you're under pressure. Maybe you feel resentment sometimes. That would be normal. It's a human normal feeling. And maybe the easiest thing is to check out and get the job done. And so a lot of people, that is how they get through the day on automatic pilot. Absolutely. Um, so it does depend on the situation, somebody said, and life is a big surprise. You never know what's going to happen. And one way, you're right, and one way people cope with that is that they keep things regimented. Keep doing what you got to do. You can handle the surprises better, at least in theory. So it is really common that people just get through their day, and what's not on their mind is connecting in a meaningful way with their loved one, their care receiver. What's on their mind is, I have 15 things to do and I have very limited time. I'll just read what Mary wrote. When my husband was home, I felt very pressured to get things done efficiently so we could get where we needed to be. Since he's in memory care, I take pleasure in shaving him
Shaving him.
and other grooming tasks. We take our time with the new routines. That's an extremely wonderful example, Mary, of how when you're doing all the care yourself, it weighs on you and you don't really have as much room to make it meaningful. But now that he's in memory care, you can make it meaningful, and that is a beautiful thing. And you will look back on those moments and feel good about it. Um, we've slowed down so much. Yeah, I mean, so time is important when you're doing caregiving, and depending on the situation, there's more that you can do, or there's less that you can just handle.
Great. Thank you so much for your comments. We have one
Sure.
other set of questions for you, and it's this. Let's say, as some of you did, you find yourself completing tasks on automatic pilot. So are there times when you step out of being automatic pilot and you're more present and you have greater awareness of the immediate situation? And then if you can reflect on this a little bit, what's the difference in how you're feeling and thinking between automatic pilot and being more present? And to give you an example, I have here eating an orange. So let's say you eat an orange every day for breakfast. Um, and if you got to rush somewhere and do something, maybe what you do is you slice that orange and you eat it and you don't think twice about it. Um, but the eating an orange could be a very sensory, even sensual experience. If you don't slice, if you don't cut the orange, but in fact you peel it, there's a sensory experience of peeling it and getting the smell of the orange as you're peeling it, and maybe breaking apart segments and you have an even stronger aroma of the orange and maybe the stickiness of the orange juice on your fingers and and really just tasting how sweet it is, but also how acidic it is, and how juicy it is. So again, it's a difference between just eating the orange because that's what you do and you know
Nutrition.
it's healthy for you.
You need it for nutrition
Yeah,
for your
exactly right. Or versus actually experiencing the orange and experiencing eating it,
enjoying it.
taking pleasure in it, as Mary just said about her husband shaving him. So, anybody have any thoughts about this? Any comments about the difference between these two frames of mind? And I see here, whoops, let me go down further.
Visiting with
Visiting,
in memory care, we enjoy looking at scenery. That's beautiful. It's nice that you can do that together and you can take your time to do it. And obviously, as the seasons change, the scenery changes. So that's a great example of being in that frame of mind.
yeah, what's interesting about this comment and the one before is that this is in some ways is shows some advantages of having a loved one in a facility where some of the hands-on tasks are being done by other people so that you don't have to do them. You can just be with them. You can spend time with them. Um, Another comment here, and this is again about being really present with in this case your husband is looking at an electronic photo album and I imagine it's not just like you're flipping pages through the photo album, but you're thinking about where those pictures were taken. You're enjoying seeing people and places that you visited in the past that were very meaningful to you, and that you're sharing that enjoyment together. It's a moment of togetherness. It's what we call a tender memory. It's a memory of really being connected with one another.
Here's another,
Um,
Steve says, she asked me to sit with her under her blanket watching TV. We were close together physically and emotionally. That's a beautiful thing and a nice memory, and it just feels like closeness. It's lovely. There's also a comment here. Um, I'm sorry. Does these things move around? Wait a minute. I lost that one.
yes, we missed one there. Go ahead. After 60 years of marriage, my wife is losing short-term memory, leading to Alzheimer's. I am the issue, having to be more patient and tolerant. How do I do this? So, in answer to your question, I think some of what's been put in the chat is part of the answer, and part of the answer is trying to create these moments of slowing down, of being together, of feeling connected. And the examples you have here are
They're great.
cuddling under the covers, looking at the photo album, um, doing something together which makes you feel close with one another.
Right. Let me read a couple more. My husband has FTD. That's a tough one. And shows very little emotion and doesn't speak much anymore. I always bring home something to eat or bring coffee or an apple or chocolate, which he scarfs down and I assume he enjoys because he always has in the past. So that's a nice, meaningful thing you can do to make him happy in the moment. That's beautiful. And then we have, I was more present with my husband when we were watching a movie and he was laughing. It was so pleasant until he forgot to remember to breathe while he was laughing and he passed out. But still, there was a moment. None of these things are going to be perfect. Um, but these are all overall nice examples of meaningful time spent together that you can look back on that feel good. They make you feel good about your connection with your loved one.
Yeah, and there's one comment that we missed, and that is looking at old photos has some positive and negative effects. My wife likes seeing positive memories, but she is often unhappy that she doesn't remember the event.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go so far as to saying it doesn't have to be all positive. That being connected sometimes means grieving together, grieving that your wife no longer has the memory to remember the specific event, that you're in her unhappiness, if you are empathizing with her, if you are there with her emotionally, that too is creating a connection between the two of you. It doesn't always have to be uplifting in order for it to be a tender memory. Um,
Yeah, as Patricia says, slowing down and being present does generate the emotional connection, but also brings the grief of losing him. That is exactly right. And a lot of times when people are on autopilot, the reason they're on autopilot is to avoid feeling that grief, that sadness, that anticipatory feeling of loss, and maybe even fear about what the future holds in the caregiving. So, yes, if you are present, you might feel grief too, but it's worth it because if you shut off your feelings, then you're not feeling all the good stuff.
yeah.
One more, Kevin, the frame of mind, it's the simple things that matter. My wife has early onset, learning to adjust the frame of mind. I still work full time, but we enjoy the little things, playing games, scrapbooking, music, dinner, visiting with friends, family, watching our first grandchild. I find these are very therapeutic to all involved. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah, you have provided some wonderful examples
Yeah.
of shifting out of the task or what we call a task orientation. Like, what do we got to get done today? We got to do this, we got to do that. And stopping and slowing down and saying, how do we just turn toward one another? How do we sort of be with the person we're caring for and do things, either things that are both positive and maybe sad, that'll bring us closer together. And that this is, I think, I'm going to say to you, just from my experience, in hindsight, it's these moments that you're going to remember. You're not going to remember all the things that you did for your loved one 5 years from now. You'll remember these moments of just being with one another.
You
Yeah.
might remember some of the really hard things that you did or that didn't go well, but the things that will feel meaningful to you are these moments, obviously. They're already meaningful. Dance around the room, that's great.
Yeah.
Good for exercise too.
Good. Okay, great. Love all this input, and we'll be asking you other questions as we go along.
Yeah. So while doing tasks, our frame of mind could be about efficiency, um, and it can affect how efficient we are. Certainly, our frame of mind affects our emotional experience, and it affects the care receiver's emotions. You already all know this because you're already writing about it to us. But we'll just stress that if you're totally stressed, if you're irritable, if you're feeling resentful, if you're highly burdened, if you're burned out, which is what we would like to avoid, your care receiver will have some experience of that. You know, with dementia, one of the things that happens is people become very vulnerable to sort of mirroring your mood. So if your mood is tense, they're going to feel kind of tense. If your mood is open and calm and peaceful and loving, they are much more likely to feel that way too.
Yeah, and just to extrapolate from what Julie just said, if the person you're caring for feels like all they are to you is a source of chores, they're going to feel bad about themselves. No one likes to feel like they're a sack of potatoes that you got to pick up and carry around, right? No one likes to feel that
Like a burden.
because of them that you are burdened because of them, right? None of us like to feel like a burden. It's one of the worst feelings I think any of us could have. And so when if we're on automatic pilot and we're just checking tasks off a list, the person we're doing those tasks for is more likely to feel like a burden. And consequently, they are more likely to feel depressed. And that will make their experience of what's going on feel even worse. And it'll disconnect the two of you.
When we were caring for Barry's mother, She hated to be a burden. And so if she felt like she was a burden to us, first of all, she wouldn't tell us when things happened because she didn't even want us to know, like if she had a fall. And also, she would get irritated with us because we were helping her and she assumed it was a burden for us. If we could find a way to connect to her, she was not the easiest person. If we could find a way to connect to her that was more loving and felt more meaningful, it was so much easier for both of us, for her and for either of us, to get her through whatever it is she had to get through, to get chores done, but also just to be with her. It makes a big difference if you're feeling burdened and resentful. It makes everything you do more difficult. It's not to say that caregiving isn't a burden. It is. It can be a big burden. And depending on where your loved one is in their progress through dementia, it can be an enormous burden. But if that's what you're focused on, unfortunately, it's more likely to lead you to burnout and it's more likely to make the caregiving even harder. So we're not saying it's not burdensome. We're not saying it's not filled with grief. What we're saying is it depends what you focus on. And if you can mindfully focus on more of the connected, warm, caring feelings and create situations for that, like looking through old photos or dancing together, it makes the caregiving so much better, easier, more meaningful. You'll still have all the hard things to do, but at least it will feel um, connected. You'll feel attached to the person, and they'll feel attached to you. So many caregivers, as we've discussed already, turn off their emotions while doing their caregiving tasks. And we've talked about why that is because of grief, because of fear about the future, just how difficult it is to watch your loved one declining, losing their capacities, disappearing from you. Those are really painful things to be around, and it is definitely easier to go on autopilot a lot of the time. Um, and it sounds like a lot of you have found ways to be emotionally present. Can you be efficient and emotionally present at the same time? Can you be both of those things? Is that possible? Or is it you have to choose? You're either on autopilot or you're emotionally and getting things done, or you're emotionally present. Has anyone figured out how to be present but also efficient?
Yeah, I mean, if you imagine that it's, you got a day with a list of things that have to get done. Can you do both? Can you get those things done?
Dean says, my sense is that it's one or the other. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Okay.
And Patricia wrote, anyone have a mantra to repeat when you feel burdened? And people are all agreeing that it's one or the other. I think it's a challenge, a really big challenge to be emotionally present, attentive, and efficient. But sometimes, if you're being efficient, let's say, and I will just remember an occasion when I was taking Barry's mom to the doctor. I had to get her up, I had to get her dressed, and then I had to get her fed, I had to get her medicated, and then I had to get her in the car and get to the doctor on time. And yes, I was stressed and I was being efficient and not especially emotionally present. And so, on top of all the things I had to actually get done, I also had to deal with her emotional reaction to my efficiency, which was resentment and resistance. And it probably took longer than if I had said to myself, look, nothing's going to go perfectly. Maybe, we don't get enough food in her. Maybe we're rushing to the doctor. Maybe we're even late. Maybe I have to just accept that this is how things are. And the most important thing is for me to be reassuring and connected to her. It's actually possible we would have gotten things done more efficiently.
Yeah, there are a couple of other comments here. One says, I often ask myself, whoops, 1 second.
Good question. Does it
Go
matter that
ahead.
it happened? That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was trying to say. Is everything that you have to do as important as just being connected? it's hard, a lot of times it isn't. Steve says every task reminds me of what is happening to the person I love most in the world, which is, that's a burden on you that it's every task means they can't do it themselves, but it's also a way to show your love to be doing those tasks for them. Um, Goretti says, I think that being a caregiver is an Oscar-winning acting role. Yeah, there's a lot of acting because you can't cry in front of them all the time. That's not going to help them at all. And sometimes that's just what you feel like doing. So sometimes you do have to perform a little bit. Mary says sometimes you just have to take that you're not totally stressed and annoyed to make things go smoothly. That's what I was trying to say. Sometimes you have to let go of all that stuff, be present. And sometimes that does make it go more smoothly. I stop, take a deep breath, go to the bathroom, ask God to guide me and start over. That's terrific. Sometimes you just need a little reset and you can be calmer. These are all, really great comments, and they show that you're all reflecting on this already. You're already thinking, do I have to be an army sergeant or can I find a way to do this in a more loving way and still basically get the same things done?
Okay. Um, I want to just apologize. My internet has been very unstable the past 5 minutes. I think I keep freezing and you keep freezing. It's going to make what I want to do on this slide a little bit difficult, but we'll give it a try. So, somebody had already put in the chat the idea of slowing down,
Yes.
and so you anticipated what we were going to talk about today. The idea of two things. One, being less task oriented, and if you don't get everything on the list of things to do done, in the long run, it doesn't matter. We're saying what matters more is being with people rather than doing for. And a lot of that requires literally stepping out of the caregiving routine that you may have established and slowing things down. We're not, maybe today we have a doctor's appointment. To get there is going to be an enormous task. We've been to the doctor every month now. Even if we miss this appointment, it's not going to be terrible. Nothing terrible is happening. It's not the kind of thing we want to do. We don't want to miss medical appointments on an ongoing basis, right? That of course we don't. But there's times when the time may be better spent just not going to the doctor's appointment, not doing something else that you promised yourself that you would get done today, but just being with one another. So part of what we're talking about here is again, our frame of mind. And our frame of mind is to be as present and as aware as possible. And the definition of mindfulness that many of you probably are aware of is non-reactive awareness. It's being as present as possible. It's not going off into some la la land. It's not like, seeking nirvana or anything like that. Non-reactive awareness is to be as present with the person that we care for, and including maybe feeling sad about what they're experiencing, but not reactive, not reacting, not trying to run away from those feelings, but just letting those feelings, just abiding by those feelings. And so there are two exercises here that we work with our psychotherapy clients to help them better understand non-reactive awareness and to help them just sort of be as present as possible. And they're two really simple exercises. They both involve our senses to a very large degree. So one is called the five senses exercise, and the other is called body scan. And I'm going to walk you through both of them. They just take maybe 3 or 4 minutes each. They're not real complicated, but they just give you a little bit of a taste of what we're getting at today. So what is the five senses exercise? I'll walk you through it. I'd like you to just kind of sit very comfortably in your chair and listen to the sound of my voice. Now, once I clear my throat here, let me see if I can modulate my voice to be a little bit more soothing. I'll put my therapist voice on right now. And as you're listening to my voice and you're sitting comfortably where you are, I'd like you to focus your attention on five things that you see right now. Certainly, you see the computer screen in front of you, but as you look around, you may see a coffee cup on the table next to you. You may see a painting on the wall across the room, or you may see the snow that's outside our windows still. Just think about some of the five things that you're seeing. Maybe it's a couch, maybe it's the person you're caring for on the other side of the room. Maybe it's a pile of things, a pile of magazines on the table. But just stay as present as possible, focusing on those five things that you're seeing right now. And now, as you continue to sit comfortably where you are, I'd like you to listen. I'd like you to pay attention to four things that you can hear. Certainly, you can hear the sound of my voice, but perhaps you can hear someone in the outdoors, traffic going by, perhaps someone in the apartment near you. Perhaps you can hear other family members in your residence, or you can hear music coming from another room or a television. But just to focus on four things that you can hear in this moment. And now, as you continue to sit, very comfortably where you are, I'd like you to shift your attention to three things that you can feel. So you may be able to focus your attention on the way your feet feel in your shoes or sneakers that you're wearing as your feet rest on the ground. You can feel how your behind feels in the cushion of the seat where you're sitting, and maybe how your back feels resting against the chair behind you. Perhaps you could also feel the nap of the blouse or the shirt you're wearing, the collar along your neck, or the sleeve along your wrist. And maybe you can feel the heat emanating from a vent, or maybe you can feel a cool breeze coming from a cracked window to get a little air in today. But just focus your attention for a moment on those three things that you can feel. And now, as you continue to sit comfortably where you are, I'd like you to focus on two things that you can taste. Perhaps in this moment, you can taste the coffee you had this morning, or perhaps for lunch. Maybe you can still taste the toothpaste you used this morning, or you can taste, a piece of Danish that you might have had. Just focusing your attention for this moment on those two things that you can taste. And finally, as you're sitting there comfortably where you're seated, I'd like you to focus your attention on one thing that you can smell. Maybe you can smell that coffee still in the cup next to you. Maybe there are flowers in the room that you can smell, or you or someone in your family is wearing perfume or cologne that you can smell. Just focus your attention for this moment on that one thing that you can smell. So that's the entirety of the five senses exercise with a strong emphasis on focusing in the present and being as aware in the present of what you're experiencing through your senses. Anybody want to say a word or two about what this was like for you to go through the five senses exercise? Julie, what was it like for you to go through the five senses exercise?
Um, so I had to imagine some of the things I was hearing because it's very quiet here, but that's okay. Um, some of the five senses exercise you can imagine, and if you don't have something that's actually right in front of you, which is very
Yeah,
um, but it is calming, and your voice is calming, and someone just wrote calming, so a couple people, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's usually the response that we get when we do this exercise, that when we slow down and pay attention to what's going on in this very moment in our lives, including paying attention to how we're experiencing the person we're caring for, it can be very, very calming. And so this, as we mentioned earlier, a mindfulness exercise like this can help with stress. But I'm also saying right now that it's a way of being more connected with someone if we're focusing on how we're experiencing them in this moment, the sound of their voice, seeing what they're wearing and how they're behaving, feeling the touch of their hand, that those are ways for us to be connected with them and to have a better relationship with them.
Dean wrote, I notice things that I typically wouldn't. That's exactly right. If you slow down, calm down, you do start to notice more around you. Absolutely.
Yeah, gets back to that example of eating an orange. If you habitually eat an orange every morning, you stop noticing the taste. You stop noticing the stickiness of the juice. You stop noticing that what the feel of the peel is as you peel the orange. It's only when you bring your attention to those things that you re-experience them and you, I think, get greater appreciation from that orange. So we're talking about caregiving the same way, to be as present and as aware as possible. So that was the five senses exercise. I'm going to walk you through one other. Here's the common five senses exercise. Notice family photo, my husband's hat and tie hanging on my closet door.
Hmm.
It's a very evocative image, hat and tie hanging on my closet door. It probably brings up a lot of thoughts, a lot of memories, but it also may be something that you just don't see. Or I should say, you don't perceive it. Your eyes may glance upon that hat and tie every day, but it's only when you pay attention that you really see it.
And Carol says, what happens if you watch them so closely that it evokes strong grief? Your strong grief can come up at any time. You are caregiving someone with dementia. If you're busy avoiding your grief, you're using a lot of energy and you're keeping yourself unconnected. So if it evokes strong grief, what was the comment that the earlier? Um, I take a deep breath, I leave the room for a minute, I do a restart. Sometimes that's what you need to do. If the grief hits you, and look, it can hit you anytime. It doesn't, not just when you're paying really close attention, it can always hit you. And so what you do is you take a deep breath and you don't want to grieve too much in front of your loved one, but sometimes you grieve with them. Sometimes they need to grieve too. They're losing their own faculties. And grieving together is a way to be connected. So, as
Yeah, that,
psychologists, our view is any feelings are okay. You don't try to run from them.
yeah. So just let me say a word more about this. And unfortunately, my internet is still really unstable, and I'm afraid I'm freezing up on you.
Mm-mm.
A lot of times people don't want to grieve together because they're afraid they're going to bum the person out, right? I'm going to make them feel worse if I grieve with them, but I don't think that's the case. I think, as Julie just said, that even grieving together creates a kind of tenderness between us that is really important, much better than trying to avoid that grief by getting busy doing things, getting busy doing tasks, moving on to the next thing.
Which unfortunately is likely to lead to burnout. If you keep avoiding your feelings and you do not let yourself have them, you get more weighed down by them, you feel more stressed, more agitated, and then, you know,
So Patricia asked a very interesting question. How much does a person with dementia understand about grief? And I would basically say, Patricia, it depends on where they are in the progression of their disease. But certainly through a great deal of a person's time living with dementia, there is a grief, there is an awareness that they're not who they were, and there's a sense of loss. And so I think oftentimes, very very often during our caregiving, they have access to their grief, and we have access to our grief, and we can share that with them.
to some extent, and maybe as time goes by, it gets harder to share grief with them and you adjust. But if they can share it with you, then it's meaningful. Goretti says, I always smile after strong grief, and I appreciate that I can let go of some of the stress. Absolutely. When you feel a feeling strongly, some of your stress goes away. And Steve says, you're teaching me that my super type A personality is truly in the way of being a better caregiver for my wife. I have to get the job done. I'm losing the connection to her. Steve, that's exactly the point we're trying to make today. Thank you. And I think many of us have had that exact issue, and no one's going to solve it perfectly, but we don't need to be type A solving it. We just have to try to be more present, try to worry less about the job. And as we said before, even if some things don't get done, in the long run, it's your relationship that you hold on to as long as you can that matters.
So let me give you one other my exercise to increase mindful awareness. It's called body scan. Again, this is not rocket science. This is very basic. And this is also very sensory. And body scan is this. We start generally with our toes, and I'll walk you through this, and I'll say, as you're sitting comfortably where you are, I'd like you to focus your attention on your feet. First, I'd like you to focus your attention on your right foot. And now I'd like you to focus your attention on your left foot. And as you focus on both feet, focus on the way your toes feel in your shoes or sneakers, and how your heel feels, and how the soles of your feet feel as they're resting on the ground beneath you. And now I'd like you to shift your attention to the way your calf muscles feel. First, your right calf muscle, and now your left calf muscle. And you may find that as you focus on them and you become more relaxed, that they feel a little looser and a little heavier. And now I'd like you to continue up the body and focus your attention on your thighs. First, your right thigh, and then your left thigh. Just focusing your attention, what it feels like as your thighs are being held up by the seat beneath you. And now I'd like you to focus on your hips, your right hip, and now your left hip. Just being as present with the way your hips feel. Is there pain there? Is there comfort there? Your hips do a lot of work during the day, helping hold up your torso. And now I'd like you to shift your attention to the way your shoulder blades feel. First, your right shoulder blade, and now your left shoulder blade. Your shoulders as well do a lot of work during the day. And if you're more relaxed, you feel your shoulders and your shoulder blades feeling a little looser and a little heavier. And finally, for the purposes of this, I would say abbreviated body scan, I'd like you to focus your attention on the way that your neck muscles feel in the back of your neck. You know, those neck muscles in the back there do a lot of work every day, holding your head up. We often have a lot of stress manifested in those neck muscles. They get very tight. Just focus your attention on the way those neck muscles feel right now, holding your head up. You know, you can feel the right side of the muscles and then the left side. And then I'll just add one more in. You know, focus your attention for the moment on how the very top of your head feels. You know, that highest point in your body, point point at which, you know, there's so much going on in that brain of yours. The top of the head is the very top layer of your brain. So that was another type of exercise. I did that very quickly just to kind of, again, give you a little bit of the taste for it. You can see the similarities between the five senses exercise and body scan in that they are about focusing on your senses, focusing on different parts of your body, but shifting your attention from one to the other. And while you're focused on one thing, to really become aware of that thing, to bring yourself into the present, to really make yourself fully aware of what you're experiencing. So this is just another way of training your mind to be present, including, as we've been saying, to be present with the person you're caring for. I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one. I did that very quickly, but if anybody has any thoughts about this one, feel free to put them in the chat. You know, otherwise we have some other things we want to go on and share with you.
I think what people find is the more they practice this, in 5 minutes that you have as downtime, you do the five senses, or you do a little quick body scan, or you do some breathing. The more you practice it, the easier it is to get into that calm state when you're not. So it becomes a tool that you have to get yourself present. And it's like anything, it's like doing exercises. The more you do it, the better at it you get, the stronger you get. It works in a similar way.
I don't see any comments in the chat. Sounds like we're ready to move on.
I think everyone went to sleep because
Maybe so. Maybe so. I have that effect on people. It's true. All right. So we've already talked about this,
I
but I
wanted to.
wonder if anybody has other ideas. You go ahead, Julie.
There were a couple of comments earlier that we didn't get to that answer this. What are ways you slow down to be with, not just do for your care receiver? So Suzanne had said a sense of humor and taking a breath seems to help me. I am a big fan of the sense of humor. It helps a lot. If you can find humor in something, it takes you a long way. And Joanne said, I tell my husband that all of his appointments, etc., are a half hour earlier than they actually are. Peace of mind for me. So that's a nice little tactic to not feel like you're rushing as much as you might otherwise. Anyone have any other ways that help you slow down um, to be with your care receiver? I like humor a lot. When I was taking care of my dad, and we'd be sitting at a little table having lunch, and we would make each other laugh, and it was wonderful. Um, it really felt like a way to connect that it was just happy. Music helps too, Mary says. Absolutely. And if you can play music that they loved back in the day for them, that really helps. Suzanne says, I try not to pack too much in a day. I think that's really wise. Patricia, nature for both of us. Yes, step outside. I agree. Nature is really calming. There's even research on it. I think it's in Japan, people go in the forest and it's sort of like great for their mental health. Deborah says, I have started massaging my husband's neck and back. He likes it and it's physical connection for me. That's lovely and that's so relaxing. Steve, her sense of humor is one of the losses I'm seeing in her. You're right. Some people, as they progress through dementia, do not have as much of a sense of humor as they used to. Even so, you try to keep yours. I remember when my mother-in-law was getting ready for a visit from a nurse who was evaluating her, she put makeup on like she looked like a clown. She didn't realize it. She was very good at makeup in her day, but when she was very demented, she was not. And we helped her clean up, we helped her get ready, but there was some humor in seeing her like that for a second. Mary says, my husband always asked me to scratch his back. That's nice. That's a connection, and that feels good. And it's, physical connection as well as an emotional one. And those are all ways to be present. If you're scratching somebody's back, that's what you're focused on. You're doing that right there, and you're not thinking, hopefully, about too many other things. But I like that suggestion of I try not to fit too much into any one day. As dementia progresses, you do have to slow everything down anyway. Dean says we tend to watch probably too much news. Probably. You'd probably cut back on that. Movies take too long to sit through. Our most recent activity is purging old papers and discovering things we've forgotten about. That's fun. Maybe if not a movie, you can watch a sitcom or a half-hour show. Patricia says, my husband loves old TV shows when everything is the way it's supposed to be. Lassie, Leave It to Beaver, Dick Van Dyke, fantastic. Those are nice shows that they generally leave you peaceful at the end, not, on a cliffhanger or scared or, upset. So that's a great one. Yeah, if you can find some short shows, music is a great suggestion. Um, all kinds of music. I know someone who puts on Frank Sinatra for her mom and has it playing kind of in the background all day, and her mom sings along and relaxes with it. Um, there's music can be really helpful. Yeah. So these are great suggestions.
Um, So here's one other thought that we wanted to leave with you. So we're talking today about trying to develop what we're calling tender memories, tender moments of connection, because we want those to be good memories for us in the future. I see you see two more comments in the chat. I've looked at them real quickly.
Favorite hymns meet a spiritual need. Oh, beautiful. That's a great one to do. And I agree, caregivers have to take a little white lie to the extreme just to keep things as regular as they can. Remember, when it involves appointments and entertainment, also outings, yes, you have to manage your own feelings quite a bit. Of course, that's part of it. I love the hymns. That's so nice. Yeah.
So here's what we call perspective retrospection. And this is where we imagine it is 5 years from now, and you're looking back on your time as a caregiver. So imagine it's 2031, and you're looking back on February 13th, 2026, the day you attended this workshop here. We're just thinking about this week in general or this day in general. And we want people to reflect on what this time of life has been like for them to, as to be a caregiver for someone with dementia. What are they going to look back on that's going to be important to them? So as you imagine it's 5 years from now and you're looking back on this time, what do you think will stand out to you? What do you think about this time you have together you will cherish? And what do you think you will regret?
It's easiest to come up with regrets. So you can do that, but see if you can come up with some of the other things too. What will be memorable? What will you really cherish?
And so, I mean, I'll tell you a memory that I cherish, especially now that it's almost 9 years since my mom died, is as she was getting toward the end of her life, and she was really failing physically and cognitively, and she was very frightened. She was very frightened about dying. And I cherish a particular afternoon where she was very scared, and I was able to calm her down by pulling out a one of the photo albums of trips that she had taken earlier in her life to a very exotic place. I think it was Thailand. And we just looked at the photos together. And she wasn't able to talk about them, but I could. I could talk about what I was seeing. I hadn't gone on the trip with her. It wasn't my memory, it was hers, but it was something that we could share together. And my mom, it was a way to help her kind of reflect a little bit about some of the things that she had done in her life. And in that moment, she wasn't so scared. She was able to just calm down and be present with the photos and be present with whatever she could remember about that trip that she had taken. So that was a tender memory that really stands out for me when I think back on my time with my mom, caring for her. What other things that you're doing that you think you will cherish now, or cherish later, maybe regret later?
Dean says, we've been arranging a couple of family vacations with our adult daughters and their families. Another support group said that we should make memories now. Exactly, that's right. I'm so glad you're going on vacations with the family. That will be meaningful for everyone because your adult daughters and their families will get to be there um, with your care receiver and have memories with them too. It'll be meaningful for everyone. Um, Suzanne says, listening to you and reading other comments gives me a sense of community for my emotional support and my attempt to reach out for help. I'm so glad to hear that, Suzanne. A sense of community is really important. We all need that. We certainly need it while we're caring for someone with dementia because it is so hard to do. It is so filled with grief. We need other people who understand what it feels like and have ideas for how to cope and how to make the most of it and how to create memories and how to avoid some of the pitfalls like losing it and getting really angry, being irritable, all things that happen to all of us, but that we want to try to minimize so that we don't have tremendous regret afterward. So the idea of perspective retrospection is we're imagining looking back and thinking what really worked well? What can I feel good about? So this along the same lines, what memories do you have about your caregiving that you think will be meaningful later? Um, and what memories would you like to make now that we've gone through this whole presentation and conversation with you all? What kinds of memories would you like to make? What would you like to do differently or more of? Um, Carol says, your focus of automatic versus being present is something I hadn't quite thought of. It's incredibly helpful. Oh, I'm so glad. You're welcome. Patricia did he feel loved and safe? That's a wonderful question to ask. And you can ask it. Someone earlier said, what mantra can I have? How about that one? Does my loved one feel loved and safe? Have I done that today? I think that's a terrific one. Any other thoughts about what you would like to do going forward that will help you make good memories, help you feel connected, more connected to your loved one? Did you get ideas from each other that you want to mention that are helpful? You have some support for did he feel loved and safe? I think that's a great one.
Julie, why don't you finish us up here? Because again, my computer keeps freezing.
Oh, again, any thoughts or questions on anything we talked about today? And actually on anything, our book, the AARP Caregiver Answer Book, is a roadmap for caregivers. So it covers everything we could think of in all the years that we have been trying to help caregivers, all the questions people have asked us. We tried to put everything in there. So if you have any questions on